Backslide by Black K. Cat. Chapter 19. Resolve. Kakashi awakes to a dark, newly familiar room and an empty bed, the sheets long since gone cold. He sighs and gropes around on the nightstand until he finds his hitayate, slides it on, and makes sure his mask is firmly in place before climbing out of bed and heading down the hall. In the week he spent at Kurama's apartment, since just tonight went out the window the moment Kurama gave in, this has almost become routine. When he steps into the living room, Kurama is perched on the windowsill, one foot flat on the floor and the other leg drawn up in front of him, his arm resting on his bent knee. The window is open, letting in the cold night air, and a breeze flutters the long red strands around his tanned face. He's looking away, out over Konoha, and Kakashi can't read his expression. Not from here, or maybe not even if he stood directly in front of the man. He pauses in the doorway, just watching. Over the 2 months the redhead has been in Konoha, he's noticed that, far more than most people, Kurama has a sort of drama to him. Not in the way of dramatics or hysterics, but in the way that a sweeping sense of emotion hangs about him, something as subtle and breathtaking as the most wrenching scene in a very good movie. Kurama is cheer and mischief and kindness, but then he stops and suddenly he's the kind of creature that poets write ballads about. Something great and terrible and sad and fiercely joyful all at once. Kakashi has never met someone like Kurama before, not in bearing or manner, though some have come close there and not in inner depth, because Kurama has so much depth that sometimes it's even hard to identify things on the surface. He's mercurial, but not in a charming way, quietly devastating in the manner of all incredibly beautiful things, whether that beauty is superficial or profound. And Kurama's is most certainly more than skin deep. One only has to look at Dame 7 to see that. The silence in the room is thick and heavy, making it hard to breathe. Kakashi tucks his hands into the pockets of his sleeping pants, wondering how to break it. Before he can, though, Kurama glances away from the view and smiles at him. Small but warm. "I'm just thinking," he says, as though that's a reassurance. Maybe it would work on someone else, but Kakashi knows better than most the dark turn thoughts can take. Stifling a sigh, he pads across the room to lean against the window frame across from the redhead. "Pleasant thoughts, I hope." But he's not really that optimistic. Kurama is awake and here, doing his version of silent brooding, and that means it's already bad enough to drive him from a soft, warm bed and out into the loneliness of the midnight world. Kurama smiles again, but this time it's wan and a little wry. "Sorry. I just was thinking of what it means when a shinobi hates to kill, but takes a life regardless." Kakashi looks at him for a long moment, remembering 5 heads delivered to collect bounties. One turned in still talking with the explanation that it would starve to death eventually. And there are other bounties registered under Kurama's name in his bingo book profile as well. Men and women, rebels and missing-nin and traitors, turned in alive where possible and dead where it wasn't. Remembers Kurama's ever-present gentleness, his easy friendship, and kindness that is far more than an afterthought. "It means we're still human," Kakashi says softly, closing his eyes. It's one of the things he misses least about Anbu, not being able to turn down the assassination and elimination missions. For the most part, they aren't so bad. People generally pay for shinobi to make a kill only when the target is corrupt and powerful, though there are certainly exceptions, and Konoha is careful of the assassination contracts it accepts. But elimination orders, being told to wipe out a whole family or clan, are the one thing Kakashi thinks he will never adjust to. Human and doing our duty to the village, regardless of personal cost. Really? We're not just fooling ourselves? The redhead sounds almost unbearably sad, and Kakashi flicks a sharp look at him. There are lines in Kurama's face that make him look older, that makes his features almost match the age of his eyes. He hesitates, weighing the possible response, and asks carefully, "Why do you say that?" Kurama sighs and rubs his hands over his face, hiding his expression for the moment. When Kakashi can see again, it's weary, worn. Because I've had to kill before, and I hated it. But at the same time, I was glad that that particular person was dead. Glad that I was the one to strike the blow. Glad to put an end to them. And not just for the sake of others, the sakes of those they manipulated and killed. For my own sake. It feels unforgivable. Kakashi studies him for another moment, reading the truth of the words in his face, his turbulent blue eyes. With a faint sigh, he crosses his arms over his chest and looks out as well, surveying Konoha in the glow of human-made light. It's pretty, peaceful, no place at all for a force of ruthless hired killers to live. But then, those hired killers are the reason Konoha has never fallen, never lost a war, or even a major battle. Those hired killers are the ones that keep the citizens safe and able to make that beauty. We're only human, he repeats. We're stupid and emotional and unreasonable, easily led and manipulated. We pick our morals and then have to stand by them. But we have hearts. Morals don't. They're ideas, ideals. No matter how much we try, we'll never manage to perfectly embody what we believe. And I don't think it would be good for anyone if we could. Humans are meant to make mistakes and falter and fall. That's why we also have the ability to get right back up again and keep walking. He pushes himself upright, nothing left to say, and brushes his fingers gently over Kurama's shoulders as he steps past. Kurama catches his hand, winds their fingers together, and lets Kakashi pull him to his feet. It takes effort not to immediately tuck Kurama underneath his arm and steer him back towards the bedroom. But Kakashi restrains himself, waits to see what the redhead wants to do. Kurama simply smiles at him, far more genuine and heartfelt this time, and tugs him along back into the small, close little world they've taken to sharing. The village is quiet and solemn when they next wake, hushed whispers running through the streets as people mourn the passing of one of Konoha's oldest war heroes. Danzo is dead, passed on from a heart attack in his sleep that no one is quite willing to call foul play, not with the man's age and many personal losses in the name of Konoha. There are no signs of outside influence, at least, and the man's guard is entirely unharmed. If a tad bit strange. There will be people waking up now, Kurama knows, and he thinks of Sai and his flat smiles, his complete absence of understanding in the face of human foibles. Thinks of the many, many broken shinobi the Hokage will now be faced with fixing. But there was no other way, no possibility of Danzo submitting to reason or clever words or sentiment. He and Sasuke had agreed, back in their time, that death was the only possible answer, but Kurama feels both viciously satisfied and empty, divided and defeated by his own conscience. Danzo, rather like Itachi, was a great man, but in no way a good one. He'd cared for Konoha in his own manner, and Kurama wishes he could have been turned towards a better path, but the time when that would have worked has long since passed. Because of his status as a newcomer to the village, Kurama is excused from the collective mourning, allowed to walk where he wills, even as Sarutobi speaks pretty, polite words about the man who was once his friend. It's not all lip service, because for all that he had done, Danzo is still a hero, but to Kurama it's simply another reminder that monsters can hide under the brightest faces. He knew. He knows. But sometimes it's stupidly easy to forget. Kakashi attends the speech, even mostly on time, because Danzo was a shinobi too, and that's a part of being a Konoha-nin. Teamwork and comrades above all else, even when they're not really your comrades at all. It's made Konoha strong, kept her standing. But at times like this, it chafes at Kurama, aggravates him, and gets under his skin. But Danzo is dead. And of the 12 enemies Kurama came here prepared to face, there are only 2 remaining. Because right now, Madara is dead and will remain dead. Akatsuki is defeated. Itachi is wavering, if not entirely turned. And only Tobi and Orochimaru are left. 2 more. And Danzo is dead. And Kurama killed another Konoha shinobi with forethought and malice. A bad man, perhaps, but also a great one. And one whom the entire village will mourn. But not his twisted little brainwashed army. And thinking of them, it's very, very hard for Kurama to feel any remorse at all. It was so easy, too. And maybe that's a large part of the reason for Kurama's guilt. He's perfected the seal transfer with Obito. Can do it now, even with a seal that isn't already present on his body. For someone practiced in slipping past Madara's ever-vigilant eyes for years on end, getting past a handful of root guards hadn't been challenging at all. A sedative in Danzo's evening tea, small enough in dose not to be noticed as anything other than bodily weariness, and quick to burn off so as not to be detected after death. And Danzo had slept even when Kurama laid a single finger over his pulse. Seals are tricky little things. Even those who call themselves masters now, like Jiraiya, were never taught them the way Uzushio shinobi were taught them, the way Kurama taught himself with scrolls and records and endless, painstaking hours of practice. Uzushio shinobi used seals the way Ganaha shinobi used kunai, and to even greater effect. Tricks, disguises, traps, transportation, protection, communication, assassination, it was all seals. Most of that has been lost, but not all. Not everything. This particular seal is a clever one. It's small and simple and so very, very deadly because human bodies are ridiculously fragile. Kurama transferred it to Danzo's skin, where it wrote itself in chakra and then activated, sending roots deep into the man's chakra system and settling, integrating. Kurama had left then, slipped back out into the midnight darkness, and returned to his peaceful, if overcrowded, apartment. But the seal had done its work. All seals are basically containers, and this one had contained just a tiny bit of extra chakra. It had released it in a pulse, a jolt that on the surface wouldn't have done a single thing. But tied into the very core of Dante's system, with roots in every part of his body, a little jolt was all it took to stop his heart and keep it from ever starting up again. When they examine the body, it will show all the signs of a heart attack, because that's exactly what happened. The seal is gone now, shattered with the death of its host system, and regardless its subtle, delicate work, only those looking for it and nothing else could have any chance of finding it, were the seal still present. With it gone, Danzo is dead, and no one can bear the blame, and Kurama is not certain whether he will sleep more soundly now or entertain yet another nightmare. No more manipulations, he thinks, standing before the memorial. There are no names here for the Itachi who died in the massacre, as they weren't killed in action, but there are a few Uchiha names. Enough that Kurama can offer up a prayer or two. Danzo will never stand trial for his actions. Wouldn't have, even if he had lived, because in this at least they weren't his alone. The Hokage, the counselors, Itachi, Tobi, they participated as well. But nevertheless, for Nagato and Amigakure, for Konan and Yahiko, for Sasuke and his mother and father and clan, for those en route who will never live a normal life, even for Shinobi, for the boy Itachi used to be and his best friend Shusui, for them, Danzo is dead. For them, Kurama killed him. For them, he didn't hesitate. He has his regrets, but he also has his resolve, and that is by far the stronger. Sasuke tumbles through the door of the apartment, Naruto gleefully colliding with his back, and Sakura a step behind, laughing breathlessly. The village is eerily quiet, but Sasuke can't bring himself to care. Not now, not when they just tried their first combination attack, and it worked so well they had to rush over and get the shinobi from the adjacent training grounds to come help them put the fire out. He can feel the grin on his face, almost painful after so many years without, and it's good, it's great! Because he and Naruto and Sakura together nearly took out an entire training ground, and surely a couple of enemy shinobi are going to be anything compared to that. It's not quite that simple, he knows, but they've been a team for far less than half a year, and already they're working in complete harmony, in tandem, never having to look over to be sure that someone's on backup or on point, that there's an extra hand if it's needed. It's like a ladder or stairs. The next step's there, even if you're not looking, because you can trust. And maybe that's all you need. Sasuke can't imagine not trusting Naruto and Sakura, even Kakashi and Kurama, though he remembers being distrustful of all four when this started. But that beginning is long gone, far behind them now, and this is a different kind of beginning, one that feels 100 times more important. Sannin, he thinks. The Sannin! They've been repeating it all day to themselves and to each other, and it still has a ring to it. A grace and gravity and allure. He wants! Not in the way a part of him still wants revenge, but deeper. Not as sharp, but wider. Like a river in flood, eating away at the muddy ground of his insecurities and doubts and fear. Carry all of that away and leave Earth rich for growth in its wake. I win! He cries as all three fall into the kitchen, one after the other like dominoes. And Sasuke is so satisfied he can't even begin to care that he's somehow ended up on the very bottom of a pile. I win, loser, so pay up. Never! Naruto declares, putting him into a headlock by virtue of proximity. You cheated, Teme! Sakura, enabler that she is, gleefully pins his arms to his sides, even if she has to have sprawl over Naruto to do it. He's right, you jerk! You did! No rules, so no cheating, Sasuke reminds the two smugly. You should have made an agreement beforehand if you wanted rules. There's a low chuckle, and all three of them freeze sheepishly. Kurama just shakes his head from where he's laying at supper. Talking like that's going to get you into trouble someday, Sasuke, he says, but it's entirely amused. Sasuke feels his cheeks flush and curses himself, but he can't help it. He's never had a crush on anyone, never felt anyone was worth the time, but Kurama's really pretty and really strong and really sweet. Even though a month and a half ago Sasuke would have considered that a tragic character flaw. He's seen the light though. And Sasuke kind of maybe just possibly wants, well, he's not entirely sure what he wants, but it's probably something to blush about, seeing as he does every time he thinks about it. He creates, because that way he won't completely mortify himself, tripping over his words like Sakura used to do. And Kami, that's probably the absolute most disturbing thing ever, that he's someone's fan. A few well-placed kicks and a couple of elbows planted in squishy areas, and his teammates are yelling and scrambling off him, rising to their feet with grumbles about cheaters. Sasuke just smirks at them, standing and brushing himself off carefully. Kakashi is sitting at the other end of the table with no Icha in sight, and if Sasuke didn't already think Kurama was one of the, Naruto would say, coolest, and for the life of him, Sasuke can't think of anything more dignified. So if he wasn't already one of the coolest shinobi in Konoha, Sasuke would be his devoted follower for that alone. Kakashi had come in to breakfast, and Kurama had taken one look at him carrying his beloved orange book and snapped, I don't allow people to come to the table with dirty hands, Kakashi. What makes you think I'm going to let you sit down with your mind full of filth? There had been protests and melodramatic reactions, and Kurama had weathered it all like a seasoned general. The end result was Kakashi at the table and his porn safely out of sight, and two senbon next to his hand had convinced Kakashi out of even attempting to read during the meal, regardless of his surreptitiousness. I heard you had a bit of an accident today, the copyman says blandly, studying them with aloof interest, although Sasuke can see the joke's eye crinkling with mirth. It was not an accident, Sakura protests, taking the seat that somehow managed to become hers. That jutsu is exactly what we intended it to. Kurama sets the last bowl down in front of Naruto, who's looking faintly sheepish, and cuts in dryly. This wouldn't happen to be the raging inferno that Kotetsu and Izumo helped you put out, would it? Sakura casts around for backup. Because teamwork is important, and he finally is starting to understand Kakashi's those who don't follow the rules are trash, those who abandon their comrades are worse than trash. Sasuke obligingly jumps in. They're exaggerating, it wasn't that big. Kurama gives them a long look. The fire that made Iruka-sensei think the academy was going to burn down and that an army was invading. That one! Silently cursing the fact that Kurama somehow, between his shifts at the mission's assignment desk, his patrols, and his habitual aimless wanderings, seems to know just about every shinobi in Konoha. Sasuke subsides and tries to refrain from making eye contact. With a snort, Kurama rolls his ass and takes a seat. Don't worry about it too much, he offers cheerfully, filling bowls with nabe and passing them around. I think every shinobi destroys at least one training ground. Except the Misu, Kakashi mutters, pulling a bowl of dipping sauce closer and picking up his chopsticks. I think he'd faint in horror if you even suggested such a thing to him. Kurama laughs, and it's odd. Because even if, a lot of the time, Sasuke can forget that Kurama and Naruto come from the same clan, they have almost identical laughs. Not all the time. But when they both relax and are truly happy, it shows. It's also really, really pretty and makes Sasuke want to smile himself, even if he's never thought about it in the terms of Naruto making him feel like that. The bond does, though, so maybe he should think about it, if only just a little more. Come to think of it, Sasuke steals a glance at his teammate, studying his face. It's rounder than Kurama's, baby fat still present regardless of their training, and he's got those strange lines like clan marks, except Kurama doesn't have them either. He's blonde, and his eyes are a brighter shade, but in a few years, when he's grown into his face and his shoulders and his boisterous jeer, Sasuke suspects that Naruto and Kurama will look very much alike. There's heat rising in his cheeks again, unbearably hot, and likely enough of it to turn his whole face crimson. Cursing himself silently, Sasuke ducks his head and stuffs a prawn in his mouth to keep from doing something stupid, like possibly blurting out, "Naruto, you're probably going to be really hot when you grow up. I have a crush on your cousin right now, but since I already know that it's just a crush and will probably die an embarrassing death, how about I fixate on you instead?" Oh, Kami. Sasuke adds a chunk of cabbage and 2 cubes of tofu to his mouth, vaguely wondering if he could choke on his dinner and spare himself any more early onset hormones. Gah! When he looks up, Kakashi is watching him, looking hugely entertained. Sasuke pins him with a "die right now, you piece of slime" glare and viciously bites the tail off another prawn. The Kapitan chortles a bit and escapes staring. Sasuke hates him so much. The sound of Kurama clearing his throat makes them all look over at him, where he's eyeing Kakashi pointedly. For one horrified moment, Sasuke thinks it's because of him, but then Kakashi raises his hands in clear surrender and says, Nah, Kurama, I wasn't sure if you wanted to do it." Kurama rolls his eyes again, even as he sets his bowl aside. "You're their Jonin sensei," he points out. "As much work as you foisted onto me, it's still your responsibility." With a put-upon sigh, Kakashi nods, then looks between the 3 genin. He's oddly serious, regardless of his demeanor a moment ago, and Sasuke feels his spine pulling up straight in response. This is important, then. Kakashi lays his hands on the table in front of him, meets each of their eyes in turn, and then says, "I never expected you 3 to make it past the first week." That's not exactly heartening, if rather understandable. There's a sharp thud from under the table, and Kakashi winces like he's just been caked, then quickly continues. "The first month was a surprise, but to be honest, your chances still weren't that great. I was even considering enrolling you in the Chunin exam just to show you how far you had to go." He takes a breath. "But not anymore. You're a team, and I'm proud of how far you've come, how far you've been willing to go. There's still 2 months, give or take, until the Chunin exams, and right now, I think you've got the best chance of any rookie team in Konoha. The choice is yours, but if you tell me you want to take the exams, I'll nominate you." "If it's worth anything," Kurama adds softly, "I think the 3 of you will take them by storm." There's a light in his eyes, a certainty, a conviction, and it's something more than faith or belief, because those are rooted in hope, and this has its roots in fact, in the blood and sweat and effort they've put into every minute of their training since they made their decision, and it stirs something in Sasuke. His heart clenches and his breath stutters. His blood pounds, but his mind is buzzing with emptiness. He's not entirely sure which is more astounding to hear, the words of praise from both their teachers, or the offer to enter the Chunin exams. For real! Not just Sakura's theory anymore, a vague idea. It's happening! "Nominate us," Naruto says, and his voice is steel, bright and rippling, and with an edge that cuts, an edge that could kill if fully honed. "Nominate us, and we'll win the whole thing, Kakashi-sensei. We'll beat the exams on our first try, and then we'll finish the requirements and beat our Jonin exams too." Kakashi looks between them again, from Naruto to Sakura to Sasuke, and then back, searching for something in their faces. Whatever it is, he must find it, because he relaxes back into his chair like a puppet with his strings cut and beams around the table. "Nah," he says, and it's the same cheery, vaguely sadistic tone he always uses. But this time there's something else buried just beneath the surface of it. Maybe pride, or pleasure, or satisfaction, or none of those at all. "Somehow I thought you'd say that." He looks over at Kurama, who's smiling faintly, with the same steel edge that was just in Naruto's voice echoed in the curve of his lips. "Training?" "Training," Kurama agrees. "I hope you 3 aren't overly attached to your sleep schedules, because most genin wait a full 9 months after graduation to take the winter exam, rather than the summer one 3 months later. We've got a quarter of that time to make sure you're entirely prepared for anything the examiners could throw at you." "That doesn't matter," Sakura says stubbornly, and Naruto and Sasuke echo her words with firm nods. "We'll do all the training you want, because we are going to pass. No matter how hard it seems, we will." Kurama looks at them, Then over Kakashi, and his sharp smile becomes a grin. A fox grin with sharp teeth and wicked eyes, laughter and promise and an edge of wildness. It's Naruto's prankster smile, but honed, refined, terrifying, thrilling. I have no doubt, he says, like it's an oath. And even if it's not, Sasuke is willing to take it as one. Sannin, he thinks again, and feels his heart pound. He meets Sakura's eyes, then Naruto's, and knows without having to ask or even wonder that they're thinking the same thing. The Sannin, we are going to pass. We will.